All right, Tony is going to be on here in just a second, and Will had a last minute scratch, he called it. Made me scratch my head more than anything, but apparently he had to go. He said he had to go get something or do something. I don't know what it was, but so we're going to dig in on this a little bit. Tony, notorious for making fun of me for being late, is also late here today. So, but let's get rolling. So, Curtis, why don't you just give us a little background? I mean, you've been on before, and I think a lot of people are starting to understand who you are. I think Michael Neamy's trying to claim you somehow as if he found you, or I don't know what's going on there, but God bless his heart. But give a little background on what you've done, what you're doing now, and then kind of a little bit into, what, when you put the post out, what you're talking about with the whole, LTL strategies towards a non-LTL situation.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Good to be back again. LTL is always the redheaded stepchild, so I'm not surprised there's last minute scratches and technical difficulties. So I'm Curtis Garrett. I've been around the industry for about 15 years now. Started brand new. Didn't know a thing about freight with Old Dominion back in 2007, and spent about 8 years there. Did a lot of different things. Spent some time in dock operations. Did a driving school. Drove for about a year. Went into W&I, which is kind of where I really started learning the business side of things, and it kind of piqued my interest on, the pricing and costing and reways and dimensions and all that good stuff. So I was there, like I said, about 8 years in total. Ended up coming to work at headquarters for a couple of years in pricing and costing there. And then for about the last 5-6 years, I've been with a couple different 3PLs. So I'm with a company called Recon Logistics now. Really good. If I had to start my own LTL, focused 3PL, this is exactly how I would do it. It's very transparent, very just, very in tune with what our customers, our shippers want and need. We're basically an extension of them. Really, really good on the technology side. There's Tony popping in, I see. So yeah, we've got a lot of pretty cool things happening. We've got our own, we're a SaaS company as well as a freight management provider. So we build the entire TMS, all the API connections, everything ourselves. So that is quite a dog there.
Oh, Tony. Yeah. So, no, LTL. I mean, I don't know what happened with Will or anything, but this is Tony's jam. He loves this stuff because he likes to talk about things that he knows he's better than me at, because there's very, very, very few, and right. This is one of them. So he just loves it.
Well, for the record, I believe it was Tony that contacted me last time, so I can't. Maybe Michael alerted him.
Yeah.
I can't settle that dispute, but
no, he did. Tony was all like, "Can you believe?" Because we put the post out and it said, or Mike commented on it, said, "You're welcome." And Tony's like, "Can you believe he thought he found Curtis? I found that guy's a genius. I found him," or something like that, or whatever it was for the last show. And so LTL is just close to Tony's heart, man.
So why is LTL's pickups like 2 days late, kind of like me to the meeting?
Yeah, that's a good
insight on that. Are they having the same trouble finding dock workers as we are having finding line workers? I mean, are they in the same staffing nightmare that everybody else is in?
Yeah, definitely 100%. Drivers and dock workers are worth their weight in gold right now. So I definitely think carriers are spending more money on driver, labor acquisition than they are customer acquisition right now, to be honest. So
yeah, and I know I've talked to a couple people that, I've got some customers that, we have when it comes to expedites, being able to move, it's just what I've always been able to do is have a good network of, sprinter vans and small straight trucks and things, and some of those LTL shipments that they were doing, they're just doing that on, with those type of equipment now, because there's quite a few of those available compared to, if it's 2 days late, it's on time. 3 days late, it's just barely late, so it's just one of those things that they're getting used to, and it's getting worse, I guess. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, one thing we do at Recon really well is track, exceptions, missed pickups, late deliveries, any sort of OS&D issue, damages, refusals. So we've got a pretty good idea what the industry performance looks like. And if, I look at the chart, I show it to our customers, I show it to carriers. It's kind of, in the last 6 months, it's kind of spiked up and down a little bit. But definitely if you go back as far as like January 2020, it's a pretty steep downhill ride. So, but it is, I would say, somewhat expected. Hard to find people to work right now. Hard to find, basically the funnel or the influx of drivers was shut off for a long time during COVID with training school shut down and that sort of thing. So it's a little scary if you look at the numbers of CDLs that were given out in 2020 and so far in 2021 compared to your average years. It's pretty low. So I think we're going to be feeling the driver pain for a little while longer for sure.
Are you seeing a it's kind of hard to describe, I guess, because obviously you're busy, but at the same time, are you seeing kind of a decline in, or are you seeing customers going with different options rather than LTL just to try to get stuff there a little sooner? Or are you running into that at all?
Somewhat.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that. What's that, Tony?
I'm gonna go with yes. I have a third party collect customer that's about 550 miles away that ships some, I don't know, what is it, class 500, class 400, some high space, low weight, low volume, low density product from our plant, and they're booking truckloads for, I don't know, five of these units fill a trailer, and they're booking trucks for 2 full trucks.
Yeah, I mean, that illustrates what's going on. I was going to say, there's still not a ton of good options. I think there will be more in different modes and sub modes, and a lot of companies popping up with the multi-stop and combining partials to create the shared truckload and that sort of thing. But for now, I think we're still like in the pain mode, where I think very soon there might be, from some innovations and some different opportunities in the market, there might be more options and more modes. But for now, it's pretty reactive still. And, like Tony, that's obviously not sustainable, paying that kind of money for 2 units or whatever they're shipping for, an entire truckload. So yeah, it's still pretty bad out there.
And that's one place, as a broker, you can bring some value, is saying, hey, all right, where are my customers' pain points? And if they're, if LTL is one of them, you can start looking to try to put together some partials and partial truckloads. And is that something that you guys do there as well, Curtis? If you're saying, hey, just my capacity right now, I'm going to do whatever I can to help. Do you work towards maybe a different mode?
Yeah, definitely. We, through our technology, as well as just, some good people that we have working for us that really know the industry. Yeah, I mean, LTL, it used to be you could give them anything and they would take it, but there's a lot more, there's a lot narrower set of parameters for the type of shipment that the LTL carriers want right now. And their terminals on the front line, they're dialed into that. They're refusing anything too large, too heavy, too long. So yeah, it definitely pays to have, instead of being reactive with it, have a good partner, I guess, that has the right connections, knows when to spot, like, hey, this, these two partials or what might be a volume in the LTL world in the past might be good candidates to pair together, stick on a truckload, have 2 stops, that sort of thing. So it's gotten interesting. There's, with all the embargoes that the LTL carriers have put out, or not it's not always defined as an embargo, but service interruptions,
Yeah.
that's a whole thing in itself. But it's gotten tougher to navigate. And if truly what all that matters is getting your product and goods to your customers, there's not just an easy button really right now. So it's gotten interesting for sure. What are you seeing, Tony? I know you're, I don't know your split of, what you guys ship as far as modes and volume and stuff, but what are you seeing in the shipper world?
We have a lot of honest to God, the way our deal is set up is most of our stuff that we book commercially is booked through the customer's portals. Like it's third collect from our point of view, which means if there is a third party 3PL, it's collect freight from, so the customer is arranging the freight. We may supply them with weight stems, skid counts, all of that kind of stuff. But like 98% of everything, I mean, we have a couple of LTLs here and there that are prepaid where we are actually arranging the freight, but it is not, it's the exception by a huge stretch. I tell people I don't have any freight, but I mean, the God's honest truth is I have 2 loads a week and about 1 or 2 LTL pickups a week. And there's just no market for somebody that's hitting me up. And it's crazy how much I'll get hit up after saying that, but
you mean
honestly,
those are the amounts that your company's paying for?
Yeah, in the volume, like maybe 1 or 2% of our freight that goes out, if that, is prepaid that I have control over.
Yeah.
Picking a carrier or partner.
So you're getting sent a lot of bills of lading, and you got carriers backing into your dock. You're just
right. And I know, like, in essence, we book them with that customer's preferred carrier on their account. But I can tell you at this point, like, I grade carriers in my mind, and there are a few that I don't want to name, but they couldn't pay me to use them. And there's a few that I would love to use that I can't because it's third party, collect freight where the customer's choosing. But there's a ton of people who the stuff that I have is not cube. Like, it just doesn't cube. We ship awnings. So right now, like our typical shipment of an awning, it's a 6.5 inch diameter cardboard rolled tube that may be 20, 24 feet long. And nobody wants that because you're taking up like 6-8 skid spaces because you can't put 2 skids side by side in a trailer with that tube on the ground. Then you have skids along the one side of the trailer, which causes the trailer to lean slightly. So then the tube rolls over there when this forklift's so, and then they end up driving over. We have less than ideal freight. It's awkward and it doesn't fit into there's only 2 carriers right now that'll even pick it up.
So it's probably a good thing you're not managing the pricing and dealing directly with carriers on that side, because that might be
I'm very thankful for that. Our less than ideal freight, I am quite thankful that we don't have any prepaid.
Yeah. I mean, but that freight still has to move, right? So it's
right.
The options are getting fewer, but it's still got to go with somebody.
We had a carrier that for whatever reason it went to the wrong place. We're in Indiana. This stuff was supposed to go up near Detroit, and we got a call from a different customer. It ended up outside of Atlanta. We're still not even sure how it happened or who's at fault.
Yeah.
So I had to get them to get me the DIMS back because I don't know the DIMS of this particular shipment that went out, and we're doing hundreds and hundreds a day. And I had to book it from this place outside of Atlanta to get to Michigan. And the place in Atlanta was calling me and they're like, when are they going to come pick this up? And I had to explain to them the freight market and the fact that in the LTL world, you can book them today. They may not pick up until Friday. They may not pick up until Monday of next week. If you're talking, end of business on Thursday, it may be Monday or Tuesday before they even make the pickup. Yep. I said, why don't you call me on Monday if it's not picked up? And then by the time they got back to me this afternoon, they had picked up 30 minutes ago, but I booked the truck like Wednesday or Tuesday afternoon or something. I don't remember what it was, but it took a day or two for them to come in and make the pickup.
Right. I think the worst, misrouting or mishap that I've seen like that with one of our customers, and it happened a while back, but an LTL shipment was supposed to go from North Carolina to somewhere in the Northeast, and it somehow got routed to South Korea.
Whoa, that's slightly out of route.
Yeah.
South Carolina, South Korea, they're close.
Right. That was a expensive free astray, to get it back to the US.
How did they do it without customs? Was it one of those high volume places where they just say, hey, I need the customs for this, and somebody spits it out?
Did Kim Jong try to keep it?
Sorry, what was that?
Did Kim Jong try to keep it?
South, not north.
Maybe if it would have been a nice awning, he would have, but no.
Hey, there you go. You need one for his pontoon.
Right. Yep. So you mentioned my post, TJ, about, applying LTL logic to non-LTL situations.
Yep.
Honestly, a lot of that was just in the interest of kind of looking at the industry with a bit of humor. And, like I the first one I put up kind of in that little series was, somebody sitting on a plane and they've got a canoe that takes up like 5 seats to their left, yeah,
I saw that one.
Right. So it's just, it's a no-brainer. You buy your seat, you stay generally contained within your seat. And yet you've got, people in the LTL world, and this is kind of in support of what carriers have to deal with, honestly. They really, they price it based off the data they get to the best of their ability. Hopefully there's some pictures sent in, less guessing is typically equal to better LTL pricing. So, but you don't know on any given night until, the piece of freight comes down the dock, and you could have a perfect little, 1 pallet spot left on that line haul schedule to close that trailer down, and down comes, a 10-foot crate or something like that. So just, in that same token, I'm sure that shipper doesn't want to pay any sort of oversized or overlength fee on top of that. So it's just kind of, we're all dialed into it, and it's normal, in the LTL world. But when you start, breaking down some of what actually goes on and putting it up next to other normal everyday industries that we see, it's just kind of ridiculous. So, but it's what we've gotten used to.
But I mean, I look at it from like me being able to know, like, how, kind of being brought up in the expedite world, going to truckload, understanding then, like what type of, it always gave me more strategies, more ideas to bring to my customer, to make things happen. And, the thing I think that the divide there with the LTL world is like, a lot of other modes are still dispatched the same way. They're still procured the same way. It's really just being creative in how you're going to put the shipment in, where you're going to put it in at. But with LTL, there's like a whole separate pricing system, classing system, all of that stuff. And I think that's why people stay away from it if they're not in it, because it's just a whole different, they may not feel as though they can even apply it to what they're doing. So, what are some key things that you do in LTL that someone can then take and say, hey, I can help bring this to, my customer? Or is it just the fact that, hey, I just got to know somebody that knows LTL and refer them to them? Or is it something are there key strategies you can use yourself?
Yeah, I mean, so sometimes the education route, is a little more futile if there's, say, turnover in a warehouse, or, whoever's on the front line making that decision, booking, quoting, booking with different LTL carriers. And that's where, the translation maybe comes in better than education, with different tools, pieces of technology, very user-friendly, good interface on a TMS, that sort of thing. Definitely, like you kind of alluded to in the LTL world, the details, details definitely matter. In comparison with truckload, it's more just the lane. We need to find a truck to cover this lane, origin, destination. And you'd asked a bit about, what LTL logic or what's normal over there, and how can that be applied to other modes, maybe truckload, for instance. And I think, details at origin and destination, it doesn't take much, to upset a driver if there's something not noted, if it's, say a, certain type of delivery or certain service level or accessorial requested, that sort of thing. So that's, in a way, that's where, there is some overlap between LTL and truckload. But yeah, it's honestly, it's a tough question to answer. I mean, LTL it can be seen as confusing, complex. But a lot of it, once you nail the basics, it's really not that bad. I mean, a lot of it kind of functions the same way, and it can be boiled down, to some, I think, some pretty simple concepts. In dealing with LTL carriers, if they have, all the data and information that they need, both up front when, they're looking at giving some sort of pricing program, but also day to day and, every shipment at a time. If you're sending them the right information, they know exactly where they need to go, what they have to do. There's less risk, there's less guessing. It's just going to go a lot smoother. So it's interesting that, still in LTL, for the most part, for the carriers, their revenue is driven by weight and class, like you mentioned, the freight class, and then obviously the lane. But their costs are driven by space, time, and risk. So space would be, the line haul portion. That's usually the biggest part of their overall cost. How much space and, what's the cubic density of the freight? Time would be typically, a little bit addressing handling on the docks if it's moving through different terminals. But typically the time part is, pickup and delivery. How far out of route is the driver having to go? Is it a non-commercial type area? What's the service requested? And then risk, obviously, when you look at potential claims, damages, really delivery type, again, pickup and delivery type. If you're in a downtown or a residential area, there's definitely more risk, to the truck and driver being there. So really the key in LTL is just work as hard as you can to provide the right data, the right information, dimensions whenever possible, communicate services that you'd like the carrier to do, and reduce your footprint if you can. I mean, with awnings, it's a little tough. Can't cut them in half and glue them back together, I imagine, but reduce the space, right? Maybe a hinge in the middle, like fold them or something. I'm not an engineer, but do your best to reduce the space, your footprint, your freight takes up in the trailer, reduce the risk involved on a lot of different levels, and reduce the time. And that's kind of those three things. If you work on those and you show some progress and things are trending in the right direction, then I think you're going to have a better shot and be, a shipper that a carrier, especially right now in this market, sees as valuable and worth their time.
Here's something I did that got some of our local pickup guys to like us better. We have currently, there's 2 buildings on a campus that's, like 75 acres. I mean, we're a large facility. It's in the city, but yet it's in commercial district. There's houses across the street, but
is it an older part where there, houses and commercial used to be more intertwined?
Yeah, it's in an older part of town, but we're probably a quarter mile off a 4-lane highway. So it's very accessible. It's very easy to get in and out of. The yard itself is not great for truck traffic, but we set it up as good as we could to make it work. But instead of, a lot of our stuff is in cardboard packaging, and most of our stuff doesn't need to be packaged in cardboard. Like, an RV door can get wet because it's a door, right? So it can be wet. We store a lot of our finished goods outside, except for the stuff that ships LTL. So we cardboard it. And there, we ended up, we package and box it and make it real neat and final mile friendly. The problem with that is once it gets in cardboard, now you can't store it outside, and we're out of space inside. So we ended up, like, we put together like a carport and area where we can get a forklift in and out of it, but it's got a roof where we can stage this product and this material out in the yard where the trucks go, so that they're in and out time. We don't have to wait. They hold on, let me go on the other side of campus and find this one item that's built in that area and pull it out here and drive it all the way over here 20 minutes later. So we made the pickups for the LTLs way faster. So we just brought everything into one spot outside where the trucks are, covered, still dry, yet quick and easily accessible. You know, that's one thing you can do as a shipper to help your drivers and your carriers want to make your pickup, because the driver ultimately decides where he's going to pick up. You know, they can get dispatched somewhere, but then they, you know, the driver can just say, oh, I couldn't get in there, they were busy, there was a long line, and they won't wait in this market.
Right.
They'll just drive on to the next place. But if you're a place that they don't want to come, you're going to be busy and plugged up every time you have a pickup there from the driver's point of view.
And they know it. They know the places. I mean, it's
Yep.
funny. It's like, you know, if you want to be, you know, I think I just see a lot of customers based so much on pricing, and they think they solve all their issues through an RFP and you know, let's drive it down and do this and that. But there's so many more issues you can solve by going to the front lines and you know,
Yes.
like, hey, I got this load for you. You know, when I was dispatching, picks up out of here. You know, I can get it right now if you want it. No, I ain't going in there. I ain't going there. I know that place. Trust me, I know that place. I'm not going there. I'll take the one for $1.80 a mile instead of the one for $2 a mile, as long as I don't have to go in there. I'll deadhead farther. You know what I mean? Like, those are things that drivers say, and you may have a better rate, right? I mean, you've got a better rate on it. And to your, you know, you're thinking like, wow, you know, this broker, this carrier took it for this rate, but the service on it may not be feasible because of what happens on the front lines. And that's that you can create a better capacity, a better flow of capacity yourself as a shipper, if you really see it from that standpoint, I think.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that's kind of what I meant by the, you know, focus on those details, you know, especially in the truckload world. It's like, hey, we've got, you know, Chicago to LA, we need a truck in this lane, you know, what's the best price? But the drivers, you know, and even companies to some extent remember the little things. They remember the experience. They remember, you know, how it was for them. And if you can get them in and out on the pickup side and hopefully on the delivery side, and there's no unknowns or surprises, then that's going to be, you know, that just starts building the trust little by little. That'll be a driver you can use again. But on the LTL, so you're absolutely right with that strategy, Tony. Like, those LTL drivers, like they're the entire face. You know, you've got $7 billion companies in FedEx and 4.5 or something in OD. And yet whatever driver you're assigned, that's the whole company to you, basically.
Yeah. I got a follow-up question for you. I heard you when you were talking about like the main cost in an LTL operation is their line haul. Why do you suppose that is? I mean, I know that, you know, as a driver, as a former driver, I call it recovering driver because I have relapses. I like driving, but I don't want to make a career out of it. It's a great career, but it's not something I want to do forever. I know that in that world, I think the line haul guys in the LTL world are the ones that are the senior drivers. That's the coveted position, and they probably all make more. Is that what the cost is? Is it the driver cost?
That's a big part of it. Yeah. I would say in most carriers, line haul drivers are paid a little bit more. You know, they're paid more for the work they're doing, the miles they drive, the drops, the hooks, that sort of thing. They get
a lot
paid
of it's overnight.
Fuel their truck. Yep. A lot of it's overnight. I mean, where I've seen there's typically a good spread of senior drivers, you know, and juniors and rookies or whatever in both sides, P&D and line haul. But yeah, those senior guys on the line haul side, guys or gals that can pick their route or their run, their scheduled run, you know, they're probably maxed out on the per mile pay. They're doing great. It's a good job to have.
It is.
So we need to, you know, we need more people to get that memo and get them in.
Yeah.
I think one big thing that I don't hear talked about too much, but here in the last year or two, a lot of carriers have been, switching to automatic trucks versus manual. And I think that's great. Like I'm not a mechanic, I have no dog in the fight as far as, what is better mechanically, but just for purely finding drivers. Like I think that really opens up the demographic of your average LTL driver. I think
does it open up the demographic, or does it just lower the bar?
Hey, I mean, if lowering the bar opens the demographic, great.
I think it's more of an adaptation to just what's, how we are evolving just in the world. I mean, if you look at, the type of products that we ship, there's a lot more of the lighter products. I mean, the new materials that we use, the new ways in which we're, even having to ship them, even with like I said, with LTL not being able to, some of that stuff that, I think a lot of that having a manual truck was back, everything was heavy, everything was heavy. And if it wasn't, then, it just made more sense for them to manufacture trucks that were all manual, just because it just was more efficient. And I think at this point, I mean, even the truck manufacturing is probably more efficient in the way in which they make the trucks. And I think an automatic truck is something that a lot more people can pull off compared to what they were before. I don't know.
Yeah, I think from a fleet owner standpoint, it's fuel mileage over the cost of the truck over the life. I know the automatic truck is a lot more expensive for that option, at least to this point it still is. But if it's a half or 1 mile to the gallon over the life of a truck, I don't know what you're going to get in a city truck, 500,000 miles before they swap them out, 750,000, something like that. It's a huge number in fuel savings if you're getting 1 mile to the gallon better.
Yep.
Well, I mean,
if
is that for highway, or are you talking local?
Local, even. I mean, the highway, it's probably 2 miles to the gallon.
Really?
1.5, roughly. Yeah, it's like 1.5 to 2, somewhere in that range between the automatics and the standards, depending on the driver. Like I knew a guy, we drove the same truck, and I could not touch him on mileage, and he would always get better mileage than me. He was just a better driver than me.
So when you get on the highway and you keep it in one gear for X amount of time, you're still getting better gas mileage in a manual?
Because you're not always in that one gear. There's hills, there's curves, there's construction, there's traffic, there's all of those things that you run into in a normal run. That the manual is great, but the automatic is just more fuel efficient.
The automatic,
I mean, your average RPM is probably a lot lower on the automatic, right? You're not revving the engine up as high before the shift actually occurs.
Yeah.
Speaking of savings, when a lot of the carriers started using those, I don't know what they're called, wings maybe on between the wheels on the trailer on the bottom there, kind of by where the landing gear is.
Skirting.
The skirts, yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. I believe that provides something like when it's down open highway, I believe it's like 1 cent per mile or something in fuel savings, at least at one time. I
know California, I believe it's mandated, isn't it?
Oh, it could be.
I think it is.
Yeah, because I remember we had a couple. We didn't do a lot of California with our assets, but to go there, you had to have a skirted trailer. And then you see, I don't know if it's mandated in California, but you see those wings that come off the back of the trailer too.
Right. Yep.
And a lot of it is too. I remember a guy that he went and bought a new truck, and it looked great. I was like, man, that's a great truck, And he goes, well, I got to get so. It was, he goes, whoever had it before me must have hauled tanker. And I'm like, what do you mean? And this is how I learned a lot on the asset side. It was because the top of like a truck's ceiling really is only so high. People don't understand like the top of it has that scoop or whatever they call it. It's just a big piece of plastic basically that brings the top of the truck up to the top of the trailer.
Yeah.
So a dry van trailer is going to run 3-4 feet higher than a tanker. And that straight, flat surface going against the wind when it comes to fuel mileage and efficiency is a lot more than what people think. So it's like, if you look at,
or it was a flat better.
It was a flatbedder or a tanker hauler, he said, and I never thought of it that way. If you're hauling a drive-in, but right now you've got so many guys jumping in a truck and just hauling what they can, that, that's also something that you got to have, that obviously is an investment to go into it. I mean, there's just those little things, those little ins and outs,
It is hard to get a truck nowadays without that. Coming from the flatbed world, we call them FlatTops. I think that's been the name for forever, but all of our trucks were FlatTops because you don't want that. It's just wasted airspace. Now you're pushing air that you don't need to push with that air dam, that deflector, whatever you want to call it, above the cab.
Right. Yep. Right. Yeah. But let's see, Tim's here in the comments here. He asked, if we go back to basics, even he said, what type of freight would be non-LTL situations, which I think we touched on that a little bit. But also he said, do you have any tips on LTL routing?
There is no LTL routing.
And what is there seeing there? I know one thing I personally ran into is just like, you're tracking it and it picked up, and then all of a sudden, wait, now it's in Chicago. Wait, it's been in Chicago for 2 or 3 days. What's going on here? I don't know, how much that has to do with routing, or I obviously know that they probably just took it to a terminal and it's just sitting there waiting for a truck to bring it. But how important is that routing when it comes to all that?
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of LTL routing is just, least cost driven, and LTL carrier. We talked a bit about this last time, I think, Tony, like carriers are not all the same. It's not a commoditized industry at all. So
a lot of what you're doing when you're booking a load to pick up LTL is very, very, very dependent on your TMS system. What system do you use? Does it give you transit time? Is it pulling direct from your carrier live? Like, are you working off an Excel file, or are you live with your carrier?
Yeah.
I know, like I've used Swan Leap, and Swan Leap integrated to the carriers that were in the bids for our freight at a different place, not at where I'm at now. And the transit times were directly from the carrier, from their website. It was integrated to their system, so that if I had like a North Carolina to Elkhart load, it would contact these carriers and it would give me their costs and their transit times based on the DIMS, and it would freight class it for me, because I'm not a freight class expert. I got an idea, but I'm not, between 55 and 50, I don't know what there's a fine line there that I don't have I can do the math, but I can't do that with the volume that we're at. So I needed the TMS to do that for me. A lot of that transit time stuff, I'll see 2-day stuff. There was one that was, I remember this one lane, it used to blow my mind. FedEx could do this Elkhart to like Alabama in 1 day, like overnight. And it was insane because I didn't think it was real, but it kept happening because that was some route that they had space on that was running anyways for something else. And for whatever reason, I could get stuff to Alabama in 1 day, and you can't, like, it's a 12-hour drive.
Yeah. So in that case, this was LTL, Tony? Is that what you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And
yeah.
FedEx,
So
it was like moving priority at basic cost.
Yeah.
It was great.
So they probably had a really efficient, network with terminals in the right places and drivers doing meet and turns, swapping trailers, and it got there in time. But one thing, this is where I'll talk up Recon a little bit. We've had in our TMS forever the transit time, which is again carrier reported, pulls in from SMC3 usually, or in the API call. The price, of course, we've actually always had the carrier performance, on that lane overall. But one thing we've started doing here recently actually is develop something called the best way. It's LTL routing essentially. So for every customer, they can tell us what do they value. Is it price? Is it transit? Or is it service and reliability? And so they can actually, they can weight those things differently. We have, they literally can go 1, 1, 1, and they're all equally weighted. They can do, they can only weight the cost as the highest thing, however they want to do that. And
I'm going to interrupt you for just a second, Curtis, but as a shipper, that is an incredibly powerful tool. Man, if that's awesome. There's your meat and potatoes and your sales. If
Yeah.
you can sell that aspect to a shipper, man, but you got to sell it to the guy, not to the guys of the world like me. I don't get to choose the software we use, right? You're going to have to sell that to the corporate guy who's got connections, and that's the guy who has to buy it. But that's a huge tool, man.
Yeah,
I was going to say the same thing,
we're really excited
I've
about
always
it.
said that. I've even said for people like just as a broker to ask that. You know, no matter what the situation is, number one, you could bring a better, obviously a better, you know, service or whatever it is that they need to them. You're actually bringing what they need. Or B, you can. I said one first, and then I went to B. It's just how I do it. Or you can actually maybe counteract the fact that, hey, you know, they're pushing on price so hard on you, and they won't give you a spot bid, but then they want to bitch about service, and so that's where you can ask that question. Hey, are you wanting price or are you wanting service? You know what I mean? They're right now at this point in time, you know, you got to kind of choose, and I could bring the service for a little bit more price. But go on, Curtis. I'm sorry, I was going to interrupt you too, because I think that's one way overlooked thing that people don't do.
Oh, that's huge. It's huge.
Is he still there?
I think he froze up. He's got Elkhart. He's got Mishawaka, Indiana internet.
He's got the Elkhart World Wide Web.
I'm coming to you live from football practice here at Steel Stadium.
Wait, it just went to his. You there, Curtis?
Hey, are you guys there? Sorry.
There
we're here.
Okay.
Could you hear us?
It froze up for a second. I could see you, but I couldn't hear you.
Yeah, so I was just saying, I was going to interrupt you as well when Tony did too, because I think that's a way overlooked thing that people don't do. So go in a little bit more on that, on what you were saying.
Yeah, so it's what I was saying was it, you know, the same old conversation of you could have saved X amount of money this month. You know, you didn't choose the least cost. And mind you, we didn't have that conversation with every single carrier, you know, high value, high service carrier, as well as lower value, lower service. We typically tried to cater and customize the right carriers, you know, for each one of our shippers. And most of it's account specific. It's not just every carrier in the book, you know, blanket rates, here, have at it. So what we were doing was good, but I think this takes it a step further, and it kind of, you know, it allows the decision makers to choose, okay, what mixture of price, transit, and service do we want? And then every time they, you know, anybody logs in and rates an LTL shipment, we'll show a percentage basically and say, here, this is your best way carrier on this load. And they may not be the cheapest every time, you know, they may or may not have the best transit, but just based on whatever parameters they chose, that's what we highlight. So what it'll do is allow higher quality carriers to get more use, you know, through our customers in our TMS, because it won't be just, hey, here's your cheapest, good luck kind of thing. So
man, if you're a higher quality shipper, that's huge.
Yep. We've got, they can actually, and of course, you know, transit times. Here, I'm going to turn my video back on. I think I might have had some connection instability there, but transit times are important. You know, we talked at the beginning of the call, they're kind of a guideline right now. You know, not every carrier is hitting every transit time. But just that being one part of the equation. And then we've got a field where they can put in, hey, it has to arrive by this date. And based on that field, it'll actually block them from booking on the carriers that have longer transit times where they wouldn't hit that either.
Oh my gosh, I'd have one carrier on every load that I booked because I specify it. So if I had any, it'd be one. But I would love to have that tool. I would love to be able to prioritize. I've had shipments that it didn't matter the cost, it has to happen. I've had shipments that it barely has to happen. I don't care, just do it as cheaply as possible, and everywhere in between. I've had some that it didn't matter anything.
I mean,
go ahead, DJ.
If you're really if you're really like set on actually bringing that type of service to your customers, you can make it happen. So I found a small cap customer. The new director of supply chain just took over. Didn't like how they were doing it before. LTL, You know, like I said, I started using some expedite trucks, you know, between Sprinter vans and small straights with some of their LTL and their full truckload as well. But they had a lot of different plants. Okay. And each person, okay, so listen to this. The 3PL that was managing their freight before literally had each like plant manager would need a shipment moved. So what the 3PL did is they just gave the plant managers like a list of the carriers, and the plant managers would just call around to those carriers and book their own shipments. And then the 3PL was invoicing them like they were making for doing nothing. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And you know, we had a good laugh about that. So we're switching it up. I made a Google what do you call it? A Google form. All right, if you go to forms, right, in which you can go through and you can create basically a questionnaire. And then each time one is made, it actually gives you data on things. So like every time that it also allowed them to basically go through just me then. So we started handling all of their freight. So every time that somebody had a shipper, say her name's Lisa and she's at the plant, she needs a shipment. She can go in, put in where it picks up, where it delivers, what type of freight. So the priority, is it high priority, low priority, expedite, you know, cost is an issue, cost isn't an issue, needed ASAP, just looking for a quote, all those things. And then she could put in the DIMS. She could put in the type of product. She could put in all of that stuff. And then as soon as she hits send, it goes to us. And we respond right away, getting you a rate now, getting you a truck now, whatever it is, boom, they get it. And then at the end of the day though, or at the end of whenever you want to do it, you can go in and look at the data. It puts the data into pie graphs and everything. How much are you spending? And that's what the supply chain director was like, I'm spending this much on expedited freight. I'm spending this much on premium freight or on you know, non-expedited, whatever it is. And you can go to, and then you could sit down and have those conversations like, all right, I'm spending too much on expedited freight. What can we do? Right now you're really involved in it. And because you're bringing that tool, I think it gives you more value to help them where they need help most.
TJ, you've been in sales for years and you're killing me that you're just now telling me that you haven't been out here trying to sell your TMS.
What do you mean?
That is a TMS, man.
I get it, but if you don't have a TMS like that, now the one thing we do have is like we do have the customer portal now, so we can give you a login to our TMS, and it shows you our shipments, or your shipments. You can click on them, see the tracking. You can click on them, see what's billed, what's not billed, right? But those are all things that not everybody. I mean, there's only a select few large 3PLs that have that type of TMS. And instead of sitting back and saying, "Hey, go ahead and take that," why not create your own and have a little personalized thing? And then now you got something to bring to your owner, or something to bring to, you know, a decision maker, and they may end up getting one for your company then, because you're showing how much this works and how much, you know, you've got a little bit of a testimonial.
Right.
Yep. That's awesome.
Yep. That's what I love. You know, Recon is unique in that we're not the biggest in the world, but we've got, I think, a really solid system that we've built. Another way, you know, we kind of attack who's going to take what, and going back to talking about missed pickups and that sort of thing. When one of our customers is in our system building a load or a shipment, it's mode agnostic until they choose the carrier and the service. So they can put in all the details, origin, destination, weight, dimensions, everything. And any rate that qualifies, whether say it's a 9,000 pound LTL, it's kind of getting more on the heavier side. We'll have standard LTL rates that are applicable. We'll have the volume LTL rate through API. We've got API calls to some of the digital truckload brokers, like the Transfixes and Convoys and those guys. So those will rate, and they'll see literally an LTL option, a truckload option, a partial option, a volume, and based on, you know, the price, the transit, and the service, again, they'll choose the option they want. And then at that point, okay, now it's a truckload, now it's a partial, now it's an LTL, whatever. So
how do you recommend, so let's say one of my 1%ers there that I actually book, and I contact through our interface and schedule a pickup, and it doesn't happen. What do I do? I mean, do I have to pick up the phone and call the terminal and say, hey, I EDI'd you this thing through this service, this portal, this whatever, and you didn't show, what can I expect? What's my process? What's the right answer to catch a missed booking?
Yeah, unfortunately, that's a huge issue right now, right? Just,
Yeah.
carriers not picking freight up. I'm sure you feel it when you're not choosing the carriers, and whoever's routing your shipments may not choose who you would choose. So yeah, I mean, typically if you're in a good TMS, it's going to be there's going to be a dispatch or a load tender sent to that carrier through either API or EDI, depending on the system. It's not a bad idea to give the local terminal a quick call just to say, hey, is it still on schedule for pickup? But if for whatever reason it is missed, and you come in or you leave that night, it's still there, and you come in the morning, you got to deal with it again. Typically you'll just adjust, your pickup date to current date, resubmit it through API, EDI, whatever have you. And then I would advise calling again, check in with the dispatcher. If it is a carrier where you can reach the dispatcher, some you get call centers, others. And that's one of the big differentiators, I think, in dealing with, LTL carrier to different LTL carrier is, can you actually pretty effortlessly get a hold of people at that terminal where you need it? So there's no science, I guess, to this now. And of course, calling every 10 minutes is not going to work. You're just going to, pick them off, and they're probably going to miss it on purpose. So really, I think it just comes down, if you're a shipper in a city, AB, whatever city you're in, it pays to have good relationships with the terminal management, the dispatchers, and, like stuff like what Tony's doing, get them in and out quick, make them kind of know that, like, tribal knowledge is huge, in the LTL world, and drivers all talk to each other. They fill in for each other. They call each other up. Hey, I've never been here before. What does it look like? Do I need to back off the street? Where's the door I go in? They all talk to each other. So if you have a reputation of being, quick, communicative, good reputation, good relationship with that terminal, I don't have a number, but that's going to really boost your chances of success.
I call anything that I book after like 11:30 a.m. I call on it. Hey, did you get this? Are we on schedule? You come in today? And they'll say yes, but then they don't. But that's just been my experience.
Right. Yep. It's hit or miss right now.
What's that?
I said it's hit or miss right now, but there's incremental ways, to over time be a lot more successful than versus getting frustrated and having missed pickups and the mishaps.
Hey, Curtis, it has been awesome having you on again. We can't wait this long again next time, but I missed getting some insight from you. I've been following your posts. I posted something the other day that I thought of you when I saw the canoe, and I was like, man, this is the only business that the price goes up as the service goes down.
Yep.
It's logistics is so cool.
As we wrap up here, let's Curtis, everybody go follow. Everybody's got to follow Curtis on LinkedIn. All right, I'm actually going to put together a couple of nice little bits from this show and put them out there, because I think it's super important to learn this stuff. Curtis, how can people reach you, and B, give us just a real quick rundown of what you can do for them. Kind of plug yourself, plug your company here real quick to end it.
Yeah, I mean, reaching me, LinkedIn is probably the best, best way there. You'll find me on there. I try to just be real, get my thoughts out there. I talk a lot about, maybe where the future is going in the industry, try to drive a lot of discussion, and I'm basically trying to build, an LTL community. So far, LinkedIn's been the platform I've done that on. You can find myself on there. You can find Recon Logistics. We don't, while we do work with small shippers all the way up to, shippers with tens of millions in freight spend, we're not necessarily in the quota shipment game, the transactional business. It's, if you'd like to work with us, we can kind of see if it'd be a good fit on both sides. maybe look at some shipment data. That's always a good place to start, and then do a full out, managed transportation solution. So if that's something that, there's a need for, can definitely help from truckload to LTL to parcel.
Well, I'm sure I'm glad I found you on LinkedIn and connected with you. And you've taught me a ton already. And everybody should absolutely connect with Curtis. Check out Recon.
Yep.
See what they're doing, because I mean, it sounds to me like they're adding value where
Yep.
a lot of people aren't.
If you're struggling right now and you want that personalized connection, I'd say that, that's what I liked about Curtis in the first place, was like you said, he's real. That's what we do here on Hold My Beer. We're not going to come out and pull on all these CEOs that are going to say, just what they want to say. We're going to have people with real conversations and personalized solutions. And that's what we want to bring to the table as well. So follow Curtis, reach out to him if you want something different that can help you out if you're struggling, which I know a lot of you are. And follow Tony. You can see me and him make fun of each other most of the time in our comments and things. Yep. And be ready, because we're going to go live from the Notre Dame Cincinnati game here in about what do we got? A week and a half here, Tony?
I'm not promising to go live there. There may be some tailgating going on before the game.
All right. Well, we're going live, so we will keep you up to date on that. So thanks everybody for watching. Honestly, again, like I said, get with Curtis if you need help on stuff. I know a lot of you do. So thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate it. And we got to have you on sooner than later.
Absolutely.
Thanks,
Good to see you guys again.
Thanks, guys.
Take it easy.